Sir, I wanted to have your comment on that, because at the end we all need the development of human life.
Yeah, well, I think that anytime that there's a war, I think that, we've looked at the war in Israel and Gaza as probably the most catastrophic humanitarian crisis of this past decade, maybe this century. And if we keep seeing the situation, as Norman has pointed out, the advance of winter in Europe, and whether the gas pipelines, which have gone through Europe in the past, now go through Germany somewhat, that if we cannot find a solution to those energy situations for schools and hospitals and individuals, I think there'll be a crisis that will sort of so deeply affect the psyche of Europeans that they may never be able to sort of see Russia in the same way. And this division will cause knock-on effects in terms of so many other areas, in terms of scientific discovery, in terms of what happens with the nuclear Poseidon torpedo or other weaponry. I mean, Russia will become more and more isolated within the European context. And I think that will be very unfortunate, because sooner or later Mr. Putin will no longer be with us, but Russia will be there forever.
I want to get the impression from a person who has born in a developed country, and it is this country itself under claim of producing carbon. I am talking about United States. Sir, what new mechanisms or funding vehicles were proposed at COP30 to address loss and damage, and are they adequate?
For that specific question, probably not adequate. I mean, given the damage which has already been done. I mean, just the amount of damage that was done by Hurricane Melissa, as well as the typhoon which recently hit the Philippines. And if there's anybody in the Philippines, you know that my heart goes out to you. So don't forget, this is COP30. That means that for 30 consecutive years, people have gathered and been wringing their hands about the effect of CO2 on the environment and the effect of greenhouse gases on the weather. And up to now, as you pointed out, the major emitters, which is the United States, and it's going back to pre-Obama, pre-Biden year policies, to drill. The oil companies put up a huge amount of money to put Donald Trump in office, and he's repaying them by increasing fossil fuels and the use of fossil fuels. We're also saying that China is increasing the number of coal plants that are being constructed, and they will continue to use coal as a way to advance their overall economic development. That's a major source of pollution. So there is not really anything like a global consensus about what's going to be done about the use of carbon fuels, fossil fuels, to control the weather, control the climate. And so I don't hold up much hope for COP30 as I didn't for COP29, as I didn't for COP28. There'll be a lot of discussion, a lot of fear raised. People will legitimately be talking. And we're seeing the effect in the southern Bangladesh. We're seeing the effect throughout Asia. And it's just simply, unless there is some sort of a dynamic new policy direction about controlling fossil fuels, it is simply going to be the same thing for COP31. That has to be the aggressive policy of the United Nations, of others. Now, one of the mechanisms that I just want to talk about is the whole climate finance emphasis, which is going on in helping countries address some of the climate problems. And climate finance, if it can increase to the level it needs to, can in fact have a very, very positive impact on mitigation of climate impacts in countries that are suffering, like Bangladesh. And I hope that the climate finance continues to grow. It's funded by philanthropy as well as by other governments. That would be one of the things that would deal with the problem. But the source of the problem, the cause of the problem, is still largely being unaddressed.
Role should developing countries like Bangladesh play in shaping their own climate agendas versus relying on international aids?
Well, every country has its own, environmental policy, and Bangladesh has its own policy as well. Don't forget, it's very, very difficult to manage Bangladesh as a unified country from the center. So much of what happens in Borishal and in southern parts of the country, Teknaf and other areas in the south, even Khulna, but along the coast, we know that in 1978 what happened is that there is simply an inability for a centralized government of this size of 200 million to properly manage such a decentralized population and put in place controls on construction of housing close to the river or close to the shore, development of industries close to the water, the use of energy, the use of gas. All of these things cannot be controlled by a centralized government. Bangladesh is the 7th most populous country in the world. 7 of the 10 largest countries in the world are federal republics. Bangladesh is one of the few countries that is a unitary state. Everything flows out of Dhaka. It cannot possibly have an implementable policy to control climate change from people sitting in Dhaka. And there's inability, lack of decentralization, lack of empowerment, lack of awareness by many of the citizens. So if you want to change things dramatically, there needs to be more decentralized authority, decentralized funds available so that people at the base level can take action.
That's really a very good proposal. I think very important to follow by Bangladesh governments or the rulers will come. How might this development, arrest warrant by Turkey, affect diplomatic relationship between Israel and Turkey and the broader Middle East countries? Do you believe other Middle East countries will go with Turkey or will be silent or will go with Israel?
Well, silence is golden, isn't it? I think that most people would follow their self-interest and their national interest and keep quiet. There's got to be more of this story. You know, Turkey is a bit of a loose cannon. They have interest, and they're the ones who said that they did not want Netanyahu to come to the conference in Sharm el-Sheikh to talk about the post-war Gaza situation. And so while there had been in the past some nice relations between Turkey and Israel, those have gone away. And there's got to be something behind the scenes about this. The International Criminal Court, if it's asked to issue a warrant for the arrest, this is Turkey itself and not the ICC. If the ICC were to issue a warrant like this, and I believe they have in some respect, but nobody respects that. And it's unfortunate because I was living in Serbia, and just after that when Slobodan Milosevic, who was involved in the Srebrenica massacres, was brought to the International Criminal Court. And when Rodrigo Duterte was brought to the International Criminal Court for criminal activities. So, I mean, I hope if anybody in Turkey is watching, if you'll give me the power to issue the warrant and follow up on it, I'd be more than happy to do it, actually. It would delight me to find some way to put Benjamin Netanyahu behind bars.
Sir, last question, but I need the answer within 40 seconds. Could this escalate tensions or complicate peace negotiations in the whole Middle East region?
For sure. For sure, it could. I think it's not an Arab question. Don't forget, Turkey's, not an Arab country per se. So I think that, as you point out, Qatar, Egypt, other countries like that, Arabic-speaking countries, they're looking to settle their own differences with Israel.
Yes, sir.
Turkey has a specific historic problem, and that's going to be solved